Hi, I'm Nick Shell with Family Friendly Daddy Blog, and something you've learned about me by now, I am obsessed with DNA tests. Oh yeah, that should be my hashtag, obsessed with DNA tests. Now, as you know, I went through MyHeritage, and as you don't know, this is my sister Dana. And she took 23andMe, which is the test I was going to take until I realized that MyHeritage was on sale and I took it instead. So, I want to read what her test showed, and then we're going to compare that to what mine showed on MyHeritage. So, my sister showed up as 85.8% European, 44.3% of that being Southern European. And breaking that down, 5.2% being Iberian, which is Spanish Portuguese, 2.3% Balkan, and then from there, Northwest European. She showed up as 10.5% British and Irish, and then French and German, 4.8%. Those are things that did not show up whatsoever on mine. I showed up nothing for Northwest European, so I was not British at all. It specifically said I was 0%. And no, French and German, actually I'm wrong, because mine was actually 37% German, and as well as French and Dutch and all those things. So, but that's interesting, whereas me, it showed up 37% and only showed up 4.8% for my sister. And then hers shows up 0.1% Ashkenazi Jewish, that's how you say it? Whereas mine showed up as 0.8% Middle Eastern. My sister's also showed up as broadly South Asian, 0.1%, which, where is that, Taiwan?
Yeah, Taiwan.
Okay, so our mom is half Mexican. Hers showed up as 7.4% Native American, which on mine it showed up as, I think, well, we'll see in a minute, 30-something% Central American, but it's actually showing up as Native American on yours. You got also West African, a little less than like 0.2% African, whereas mine didn't show up that. And then Middle Eastern, let's see, what is it showing? 0.3%. So you got 1.4% Middle Eastern, and then 0.3% broadly Middle Eastern North African, which that links up to what my mom showed up a little bit more. So my sister shows up a little bit more Middle Eastern and a little bit Jewish, whereas mine actually showed up 0.8% Middle Eastern. So let me compare that to mine now. So I showed up as 37.4% Central Western European, which is what I was talking about a moment ago. German, Dutch, French, Austrian, Belgium, Switzerland. 31.8% Iberian, Spain, Portuguese. However, we know that my mom did the same test. Our mom did the same test, and on hers it showed up she was basically about 15% Jewish? Yeah. And then like 14 points in the Middle Eastern. So it could be that on mine it shows up as Iberian, but because it was Sephardic Jewish, it just showed up as Iberian on mine because she was closer to the source. That's my theory. I was 21.6% Central American. I was wrong about that number earlier. 6.1% Eastern European, 2.3% Balkan. What did yours show up as Balkan? I just read it off.
Maybe like 4.
Here, look that up while I'm looking at this, because that actually was the thing that matches up the most. And then I had already said 0.8% Middle
Iberian was 5.2.
Well, oh wow! So
and
that's
Balkan is 2.3.
Okay, so that's interesting. That's the one thing that we actually matched as 100% siblings, is that we're both 2.3% Balkan. So that's interesting. So with the two different tests, MyHeritage, 23andMe, 2.3% Balkan is very consistent, and our mom's, I think, was double that, which would make sense. So the Balkan is the most consistent thing that I've seen in all of these tests. So there we go. What are your thoughts on finding out these things?
Well, where yours says Iberian, so mine says 5.2 and yours said 31.8. But for 23andMe, it says broadly Southern European as 36. So surely there's got to be some overlap.
That's the crossover. Okay.
Where they said it's broad,
just labeled a little bit different.
The same.
Okay.
Ish.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. What are your thoughts on your test since you got it back? I mean, we waited forever years to come back.
Yeah, we waited forever. With our grandmother being Mexican, I always identified with that because I don't have Italian nose or really any features that really specified me as any particular group. So I identified with our grandmother who was Mexican. In high school, I took Spanish so I could connect that way. Nick took French. And I don't know, that's just always who I was. So when he got like 24% for Central American, I thought for sure mine was going to be way more than him. And turns out, no, I'm actually more, is white the word? More white than Nick, and I have British and Irish and very little Mexican, which was really surprising to me. But I have all the Spanish blood too, because of my European that could be Spain. We just know it's not Italian.
But neither of us showed up as Italian, right?
No, 0.
We both showed up as 0% Italian, but our mom showed up like 4%. She showed up 4% on my heritage, which is what I did. So we both showed up as 0. So that shows you consistently how not Italian we are, despite our Italian great-grandparents moving here 100 years ago from Italy, speaking only Italian and having Italian names. They were barely Italian, and it only shows up on my mom's side. So there's what we found out. So obviously you're surprised. So like your surprise is more about how much more British or Anglo-Saxon you are, whereas my big surprise was that we're not that Italian.
No, because I always felt like with Mexicans or Spanish or like South American culture, I felt like kind of part of that if I would be around them, and then you find out I'm really not. But usually in the summer I get really tan, so I can kind of blend in a little bit more. And in college, people would ask if I was from Colombia. I got that a lot, which I took as a huge compliment. But no, not at all Colombian. I thought maybe that might come through, but guess it's all in how they interpret the test. But any way you look at it, that was not represented. So
I think this has been an interesting experiment because 100% siblings, 2 different tests. There was some overlap. But if I went on my test alone, I would not be at all British, which is my sister's test did show that.
10%.
And then I obviously showed more Spanish, Iberian, whatever, than you did, even though everyone assumed that you were more Spanish than I was growing up. So, there you go. This has been fascinating, hasn't it? I'm Nick Shell. Remember the hashtag, obsessed with DNA tests. I think that's what I said.